Are you tired of treating your symptoms only to have them come back again and again? The reason being because the underlying root cause of the symptom has not been identified and resolved. So it's really important to consider that every symptom has a mental, emotional, and physical root cause, and we need to really look at all three to tackle and resolve it. So take, for example, irritable bowel syndrome. We could take a probiotic, we can take some herbs, but when we stop taking them, then the symptom may come back. The reason being because we have not really looked at the core of the issue. So where do we start? Number one is testing. We want to really get a good idea of where physiological imbalances are and what prevents your body to function really optimally. You want to get a comprehensive blood test done by your GP that helps you to identify markers such as biochemistry, white and red blood cells and platelets, lipid markers, glucose, thyroid function, B12, active B12, folate, vitamin D levels, as well as inflammatory markers such as ESR and CRP, and if possible, zinc. I also highly recommend that you work with a holistic healthcare practitioner to get a hair mineral analysis done. I always like to look at the soft tissue levels and identify nutritional deficiencies as well as heavy metal toxicities, because they can have a profound impact on your physiology. Then you want to do a GI mapping, meaning a comprehensive stool analysis, because you can really identify a dysbiosis. It looks at the good bacteria, identifies bacterial pathogenic overgrowth, as well as yeast imbalances, inflammatory state of your gut, the detoxification, including estrogen detoxification, also fat digestion, leaky gut. It also looks at secretory IgA levels, which can be low when your cortisol levels are high or you have a zinc deficiency. That means that the defense force of the gut is already impacted and you're very sensitive to food. So this is where we then recommend food sensitivity testing for IgG and IgA via the blood. So this is really giving you a baseline. Once you have the baseline, you can really refine and individually work on improving and optimize the bodily and mental, emotional functions. So this is where we then really have a really good look at your diet. Is it a whole food diet that fuels your body, or are you consuming processed foods that really play havoc on your system, we could say? So avoiding gluten and dairy can also be quite valuable for a lot of people who are sensitive. For others, it can be things like FODMAPs or histamines that for a short period of time they need to avoid to create that healing environment for the body and lower inflammation. But overall, you want to look at what foods you consume, but also where are they coming from. So the quality of the food plays a huge role. Are you consuming foods that are free of chemicals, pesticides such as glyphosate, which really affects the production of 8 essential amino acids that we can't produce in our body and need to get from our foods? And it really affects also the gut microbes, the bacteria in your gut, if consumed a lot and long term. So then you also want to consume animal products, if you choose to, that come from a very high quality, ethically produced farms, meaning with meat particularly avoiding grain feeding and choosing meat that is grass-fed and finished. Plant-based produce that you get should be grown in high quality soils. What is also important is to avoid any kind of antimicrobials, like glyphosate is actually labeled as an antibiotic. The other antimicrobial is actually alcohol. And alcohol has a lot of negative impacts on our body, like it creates a lot of inflammation. It also dehydrates the brain, impacting sleep, headaches, poor concentration. So we really want to limit alcohol if we're on a healing journey. Mouthwash has also a huge alcohol content in it, so labeled as an antimicrobial. We want to avoid that if possible. and also look for antimicrobial compounds like in your skincare, in any cleaning agents that you're using at home. Let's look at a few foundational principles. Do you move your body enough? Or are you quite sedentary? Do you sleep 8 hours consistently through the night? Do you have a good sleep hygiene that facilitates the sleep? Do you get enough morning AM sunlight? What does your sunlight exposure versus blue light exposure through devices look like? What's your work-life balance? Do you take enough time to relax and refuel and recuperate? Or are you on the go? All of that has a huge role with your mental and emotional and physical well-being. Those foundations really have to be met, because if they're not, then taking a supplement doesn't really make sense. We want to work on your foundations. What is also very important, and all those foundations are really depending on it, is your ability to regulate stress and to handle pressure. Life is throwing us all sorts of stressors, and the more we are able to be resilient and stay centered and calm, the better we can be within ourselves. Our health is thriving, but we are also impacting others in our lives, particularly as parents, far more positively. So the ability to regulate stress is actually something we are not born with. When we are in utero, in the womb, we regulate stress and emotions with mom, and then at birth there's this critical change over that we are starting to do stress response by ourselves, and we continue, of course, but we have then the ongoing guidance from parents and other role models that facilitate us to learn to stress regulate and emotionally regulate via a safe attachment. What is interesting that at birth, for example, we are predominantly sympathetic nervous system. So that means we are more in a fight flight versus that parasympathetic rest and digest state. It is really crucial that we have the support through the safe attachment to learn to switch over in a parasympathetic nervous system. And if we have too many experiences that don't allow us to discharge that sympathetic nervous system that keep us always in it, then our health will be affected too. So that means, for example, medicalized birth experiences, postnatal depression in a mom, or when mom goes back to work, we have domestic violence growing up, emotional needs not met, there's bullying at school, an accident, death of a loved one. All of those can be some examples of experiences where we cannot go into the rest and digest state enough, and we are not learning how to stress and emotionally regulate with resilience. This, of course, can be learned as adults, because the prefrontal cortex, meaning that we actually start thinking solution oriented and connect back and frontal lobes, is really just starting in his early 20s. We really need the support and guidance in the first 20 years, and then of course once we are adults we can more proactively learn and improve it. But when we are too much in that sympathetic fight-flight state, what the body basically does is that it will compromise stomach acid secretion, digestive enzymes, and the blood flow to the digestion is compromised. So it will always compromise digestion because the blood is going to the heart and to the extremities to run and fight. This is why you can have the best diet, but if you are stressed and you don't learn the techniques and resolve the root causes of the stress, then you will always have a compromised digestive system and mental, emotional, physical symptoms. Let's work together on resolving on a holistic level and start addressing the root cause, because it is really the number one first step on your healing journey. I'm Dr. Verena, PhD in nutritional sciences, neurotraining kinesiologist, author, retreat facilitator, and keynote speaker.